Hello YouTube, this is Geeky Austin, and today we're going to take a look at the Bandai Dragon Stars Dragon Ball Super Saiyan Trunks. Okay, and Trunks stands at just over 6 inches tall from the top of his hair. And here he is next to the Bandai Dragon Stars Dragon Ball Super Saiyan Blue Goku and the SH Figuarts Piccolo. Okay, and on to detail. The detail on this figure is definitely really good, and honestly, along with some of the other new figures from this wave of Dragon Star figures, I think it is an improvement over their original sculpts. And the face on Trunks is just looks a tad off, but for me it doesn't look too bad. And of course the style of the hair is a little ridiculous, but still, I don't think it looks too bad. And of course the designs on his shirt are really good with the pockets, his bandana, his sword right here, and that's where the sword inserts. I'll get to that in a minute. And the nice wrinkles on his pants, a little tear right there, and of course the design of his boots. All in all, the detail is very basic like it's supposed to be in the anime, but still, it's all there, and I think it does look really good. And again, the face sculpt is not 100% accurate in my eyes, but it's pretty close. I think it's passable. And for the paint job, there is no kind of actual shading on it. It's all just flat colors. They got the nice shade of jeans color blue on for his shirt, and the Capsule Corp logo doesn't look too bad. A nice red for the bandana. They went with a flat yellow for the entirety of his hair without any kind of shading or highlights to make it pop out or reflective, which is very disappointing, but again, I can let it slide. And the pants are done in a solid black, and a little bit of brown is done for the belt and for the holster for his sword. And a nice bit of mustard yellow for the boots and black for the tips. And of course they made certain to color in his skin for his pants, but for some reason on his arm it's the same color as his holder. So I don't understand how they made that kind of goof, but all in all, detail and paint job wise, the figure isn't bad. The head sculpt could have been better, the hair could have been better, and the paint really does need some shading into it to make it pop. But all in all, I think it's okay, and I can let some of it pass. Okay, and as for the articulation, again, in some ways the articulation on this figure is a tad better than the original versions of these Dragon Star figures, especially with the arm and shoulders, but it's still got the same issues that the Super Saiyan Goku figure I did several months ago had. The head is on a ball joint, but because of the limitations in the molding of the neck and everything and the way the ball joint is positioned, you cannot get a whole lot of movement out of it. You can get him to turn about that much, and in that direction that much. You can get a little bit of side-to-side movement and no up and down movement. And of course, one of the problems I was mentioning that the other figure has is that the ball joint on the head is extremely loose, and that's rather annoying, but yeah. Again, it still would have been nice if they had fixed this issue, but that's what it is. And there is a ball hinge in the shoulders, which allows you to bring his arms up about that much, and they can rotate all the way around. He's got a swivel right there underneath the shoulder, which can rotate all the way around as well. And he's got double hinged elbows, which allows him to straighten his arm out that much and bring him in all the way at about that far. You can probably get a little bit further. It depends on whether or not these joints get stuck or not, but yeah, bring him in about that far. And he's got a ball jointed hinge right there in his wrist, which allows you to spin the wrist around, and of course a little bit of up and down movement. And of course the fists are on ball jointed pegs, which you can swap out with other hands, of course. The wrist is on a ball joint as well, but is extremely limited by the sculpt going on with his shirt, so you cannot really get any kind of up and down movement or ab crunching or anything on it. Instead, you can get a little bit of left to right movement, but is again extremely limited, just like the original Super Saiyan Goku figure I reviewed. The legs are once again on the similar type of hip system that the original figure arts had, but they seem to have toned them down. They're not as extreme as the first Goku release was. Being a black figure, I don't know how well that's easy to see, but again, it's done with a swivel system right there in the center, which is attached to these two ball jointed pegs, which then the legs attach into, allowing you to do a bit of a butterfly effect to bring the legs down a little bit so you can split them out a little bit further than you could if you had them in, which again, you can only get about that much if you do that, and if you were to push them down, you can get about that much. And as for forward and back movement, Trunks can kick his foot forward about that much and back that far. And there is no type of swivel movements or anything in the leg. His knees are on double hinge joints right there in the top and the bottom, which allows you to bring his leg back about that far and of course all the way straight. And there is a ball jointed hinge right here in the foot, which on mine is not as bad. I can actually get some up and down movement. It's not so bad. And you can get it to rotate all the way around. This foot here is a little bit more limited. It all depends on how deeply they tuck these ball joints into the legs. And for mine, I was just lucky enough to get one that was loose enough that I can actually get a little bit of ankle movement. And all in all, that is the articulation. Again, in some areas, particularly in the arms, I feel that it is a lot better, but in some places it's still got the same problems. If I had to judge if this figure would fall to pieces like the original Goku would, I would probably say that it's still likely, especially as how loose the head is. But I do feel that, especially with the arms are and parts of the legs and all, I think it's not going to be as easy to wear them out. But it's still got, again, it still does have some of the same problems in the articulation area. Okay, and as for accessories, he comes with his sword holster right here with a fake sword attached into it that you can just peg into the top right there. And all in all, detail-wise, again, it's not too bad. You can see rivets right there in the cloth of the handle. It's not... And that's just, honestly, that's about it. There's no really kind of detail going on the holster itself or on the metal bits of the sword handle. But still, it does look alright. It's not painted terribly. Again, it's very basic, but yeah, that's what it is. It's, again, not a whole lot of detail going on in the holster, and the paint job is very basic, very flat. And it pegs onto the back of Trunks right here on that spot you see. You just line it up and just press it on, and there you go. And it does stay on really well as long as you don't apply too much pressure down here at the end, because if you do, then it'll just fall off. And as for another accessory, he also does come with his regular sword right here, and just like the sword in its holster back there, it still does have the exact same type of details in terms of the handle. The sword itself is not sculpted too bad. Mine is a little bit crooked, you could tell. It came like that out of the package. I'm just going to have to warm it up and fix it. But if there's anything at all I can be happy about, I honestly do love the metallic sheen that they gave the sword right here. All in all, it does look really good, and it is nice and reflective. As much as the paint job on this figure is kind of flat and basic, I do at least like the silver they added to his sword. And of course, the sword can be added into either one of his hands if you put on these open grasping hands right here. It can just be a little bit finicky because the entire sword, including the handle, is made out of a very soft vinyl, so it can bend a lot, so you gotta be very careful to get it into his fists. And he does hold the sword really well, and it doesn't look too bad. And he also does hold the sword really well in both of his hands. And again, you can be a bit silly and make it give the illusion that he has two different swords, but whenever you have this sword in, all that you gotta do is just pop out the fake sword right there, and it'll give off the effect that he's holding the sword in his hands. And all in all, I do like the fact they gave these kind of accessories to Trunks, because it really is nice than just coming with two pairs of hands. And speaking of hands, other than the closed fists that all these figures come with, Trunks also does come with these open, graspy type hands right here, or energy blast hands. And again, detail-wise, they're not terrible. If camera could pick that up, you can see that they did sculpt fingernails on him. But again, there's no type of painting or shading on him to make him stand out. And the same goes for his regular fists. Again, there is details made into his one thumbnail right there, and you can see fingernails down there, but no type of shading or anything on him. And I know you already saw me put him on Trunks, but again, these are the grasping hands right here, which he uses to hold his sword. And once more, there is detail on them in terms of their fingernails and everything, but again, no type of shading on them at all to make them pop. So all in all, that's a total of 3 pairs of hands that you can put on Trunks, which is something I really do like. The biggest problem with these Dragon Star figures I have is that they don't come with enough hands. It's always just the fists and the open graspy hands. It would actually be very nice if it came with more, and still, the number one thing these figures really need to come with, they need to come with some open shooting palms like that. Because you cannot really make Trunks' burning attack without that pose. Because yeah, with the graspy hands that he comes with, what you got right here is about the closest you can get to Trunks' burning attack. And it also doesn't help the fact that, again, the articulation on the figure, while in the arms is not terrible, it is very limited, so you cannot get his hands to poke out straighter unless you want him to look like he is doing a Frankenstein on you. Then that's about all that you can do. And for his last accessory, he does come with the Build-A-Figure Fusion Zamasu, the head right here, and detail-wise, it does look really good, and the paint job, again, is very flat and basic, but I really don't care. I really do love how that face sculpt came out, how the paint job on it did. I really love how those eyes look and everything, and it just makes me very excited to get the rest of the pieces of this figure. Okay, so overall, this figure isn't that bad. The detail on it is really good, a bit basic, but it works. The paint job, again, is very flat and basic. There is no type of shading on it at all, and it would have been nice if they had actually added some more to it, but in my eyes, I can let that slide. The accessories for it are really good, and I do love the extra hands that he comes with, and the fact that he does come with a sword that he can hold in his hand and put in his holster. It just would have been very nice if they could have added some more accessories. Like I said, the open shooting palm hands would have been really nice with this figure. But all in all, this is not that bad of a figure, and for $25, this is definitely really good. I'm very happy that I got my hands on it. And all in all, I do intend to collect the rest from this series because I really do want to get the Fusion Zamasu figure. And if I get all the pieces and all, then I might go ahead and review this entire set to at least have an entire series of figures on my channel. But we'll just see what happens when the time comes. But anyways, I want to thank you all so much for listening and watching. This has been Geeky Austin.